Gentlemen and ladies, today we finish our current book series in A Dance in Fire. Previously we were reading 2 volumes / chapters at a time. Today we shall be finishing the final 3 chapters. So it's gonna be a lot of reading. And I can't say I'm all too excited, but hey, it's been a good series so far. So hopefully it'll continue to be highly entertaining. But I suppose we shall find out. I think it will. I have faith. But Dance in Fire, Volume 5, Chapter 5. Soap. The forest will eat love. Straight ahead, stupid and a stupid cow. What the fuck? What the hell is this man talking about? The voice boomed out so suddenly that Scotty jumped. He stared off into the dim jungle glade from which he only heard animal and insect calls and the low whistling of wind moments before. It was a queer, oddly accented voice of indiscriminate gender, tremulous in its modulations, but unmistakably human. Or, at the very least, elven. An insulated Bosmer, perhaps with a poor grasp of the Cyrodiilic language. Did the Bosmer have, their own actual language? I didn't really realize that. Never seen them actually speak it. After countless hours of plodding through the dense knot of Valenwood jungle, any voice of slight familiarity sounded wondrous. "Hello?" he cried. "Beetles on any names? Certainly yesterday has," the voice called back. "Who, what, and when, and mice?" "I'm afraid I don't understand," replied Scotty, turning toward the brambled tree thick as a wagon where the voice had issued. "But you needn't be afraid of me. My name is Decimus Scotty. I'm a Cyrodiil from the... I don't know how one's actually supposed to pronounce that. I'm a Cyrodiil? Cyrodiil? Yeah. I'm a Cyrodiil from... Sounds more fancy that way. I'm a Cyrodiil from the Imperial City. I came here to help rebuild Valenwood after the war, you see, and now I'm rather lost. Gemstones and grilled slaves... "The war," moaned the voice, and broke down into sobs. "You know about the war? I wasn't sure. I wasn't even sure how far away from the border I am now." Scotty began slowly walking toward the tree. He dropped Regulus's satchel to the ground and held out his empty hands. "I'm unarmed. I only want to know the way to the closest town. I'm trying to meet my friend, Loidus Juris, in Sylvanar." "Sylvanar!" the voice laughed. It laughed even louder as Scotty circled the tree. "Worms and wine! Worms and wine! Sylvanar sings for worms and wine!" There was nothing to be found anywhere around the tree. "I don't see you. Why are you hiding?" In frustration, born of hunger and exhaustion, he struck the tree trunk. A sudden shiver of gold and red erupted from a hollow nook above, and Scotty was surrounded by 6 winged creatures scarcely more than a few inches long. Bright crimson eyes were set on either side of tunnel-like protuberances, yeah. The animals always opened mouths. They were legless, and their thin, rapidly beating aurate wings seemed poorly constructed to transport their fat, swollen bodies, and yet they darted through the air like sparks from a fire. Whirling about the poor clerk, they began chattering what he now understood to be perfect nonsense. I think these are, oh my god, what are those things called? Are they imps? Yeah, they might be imps. I forget what the hell they're called. Like those muscular things with the little tiny wings. "Wines and worms, how far from the border am I? Academic garnishments, and alas, Loidus Juris. Hello, I'm afraid I'm unarmed. Smoke and flames in the closest town is dear Oblivion. Swollen no bad meat, an indigo nimbus, but you needn't be afraid of me. Why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? Before I begin to friend, love me, Lady Celica? Furious with the mimics, Scotty swung his arms, driving them up into the treetops. He stomped back to the clearing and opened up the satchel again, as he had done some hours before. There was still, unsurprisingly, nothing useful in the bag, and nothing to eat in any corner or pocket. A goodly amount of gold, he smiled grimly, as he had done before, as the irony of being financially solvent in the jungle. A stack of neat blank contracts from Lord Venek's building commission, some thin cord, and an oiled leather cloak for bad weather. At least, Scotty considered, he had not suffered rain. A rolling moan of thunder reminded Scotty of what he had suspected for some weeks now. He was cursed. Within an hour's time, he was wearing the cloak and clawing his way through mud. The trees, which had earlier allowed no sunlight in, provided no shelter against the pounding storm and wind. The only sounds that pierced the pelting of the rain were the mocking calls of the flying creatures, flitting just above, babbling their nonsense. Scotty bellowed at them, threw rocks, but they seemed enamored of his company. While he was reaching to grab a promising-looking stone to hurl at his tormentors, Scotty felt something shift beneath his feet. Wet but solid ground suddenly liquefied and became a rolling tide, rushing him forward. Light as a leaf, he flew head over feet overhead. He flew head over feet over... Oh, he's rolling down, okay. Until the mud flow dropped and he continued forward, plunging down into a river 25 feet below. The storm passed quite as instantly as it had arrived. The sun melted the dark clouds and warmed Scotty as he swam for the shore. There, another sign of the Khajiit incursion into Valenwood greeted him. A small fishing village had stood there once, so recently extinct that it smoldered like a still warm corpse. Dirt cairns, it's the sole cairn. Dirt cairns that had once housed fish by the smell of them had been ravaged, their bounty turned to ash. Rafts and skiffs lay broken, scuttled, half submerged. All the villagers were no more, either dead or refugees far away, or so he presumed. Something banged against the wall of one of the ruins. Scotty ran to investigate. My name is... God, he's always introducing himself. Oh no, this is the other thing. These are the winged beasts, okay. My name is Decimus Scotty, said the first winged beast. I'm a Cyrodiil from the Imperial City. I came here to help rebuild Valenwood after the war, you see, and now I'm rather lost. I swell to maculate Apanek, agreed one of its companions. I don't see you. Why are you hiding? What the fuck? What are these things, dude? As they fell into chattering, Scotty began to search the rest of the village. Surely the cats had left something behind. A scrap of dried meat, a morsel of fish sausage, anything. But they had been immaculate in their complete annihilation. There was nothing to eat anywhere. Scotty did not find one item of possible use under the tumbled remains of a stone hut. A bow and 2 arrows made of bone. The string had been lost, likely burned away in the heat of the fire, but he pulled the cord from Regulus's satchel and restrung it. The creatures flew over and hovered nearby as he worked. The convent of the sacred Loidus Juris? You know about the war, worms and wine. Circumscribe a golden host, Apanek? The moment the cord was taut, Scotty knocked an arrow and swung around, pulling the string tight against his chest. The winged beasts, having had experience with archers before, shot off in all directions in a blur. They didn't have bothered. Scotty's first arrow dove into the ground 3 feet in front of him. Wow, that's pretty embarrassing. He swore and retrieved it. The mimics, having likewise had experience with poor archers before, returned at once to hovering nearby and mocking Scotty. On his second shot, Scotty did much better, in purely technical terms. He remembered how the archers and Falanstini looked when he pulled himself out from under the Horver tick, and they were all taking aim at him. He extended his left hand, and right elbow in a symmetrical line, drawing the bow so his hand touched his jawline, and he could see the creature in his sights like the arrow was a finger he was pointing with. The bolt missed the target by only 2 feet, but it continued on its trajectory, snapping when it struck a rock wall. Scotty walked to the river's edge. He had only 1 arrow left, and perhaps, he considered, it would be most practical to find a slow-moving fish and fire it on that. If he missed, at least there was less of a chance of breaking the shaft, and he could always retrieve it from the water. A rather torpid, whiskered fish rolled by, and he took aim at it. My name is Decimus Scotty, one of the creatures howled, frightening the fish away. Stupid and a stupid cow, will you dance a dance in fire? Back to the dance in fire. Scotty turned and aimed at the arrow as he had done before. This time, however, he remembered to plant his feet as the archers had done, 7 inches apart. Goddamn, he knows exactly how far. That's highly impressive. Knees straight, left leg slightly forward to meet the angle of his right shoulder, he released the last arrow. The arrow also proved a serviceable prong for roasting the creature against the smoking hot stones of one of the ruins. Ooh, good shot, my dude. Its other companions had dispersed instantly after the beast was slain, and Scotty was able to dine in peace. The meat proved to be delicious, if scarcely more than— oh god, he's eating that shit now, huh? If scarcely more than a first course. He was picking the last of it from the bones when a boat sailed into view from around the bend of the river. At the helm were Bosmer sailors. Scotty ran to the bank and waved his arms. They averted their eyes and continued past. "You bloody, callous bastards!" Scotty howled. "Knaves, hooligans, appenecks." What is that? What is— oh, it's not appenecks me, it's fucking apenecks. Appenecks, you fucking idiot me. Apenecks! Scoundrels! A gray whiskered form came out from a hatch, and Scotty immediately recognized him as Griff Malin, the poet translator he had met in the caravan from Cyrodiil. He peered Scotty's direction, and his eyes lit up with delight. "Decimus Scotty! Precisely the man I hoped to see! I want to get your thoughts on a rather puzzling passage in the Minoriad Play Bar." Oh my god, this fucking guy. It begins, "I went weeping into the world, searching for wonders." Perhaps you're familiar with it. "I'd like nothing better than to discuss the Minoriad Play Bar with you, Griff," Scotty called back. "Would you let me come aboard, though, first?" Overjoyed at being on a ship bound for any port at all, Scotty was true to his word. For over an hour, as the boat rolled down the river past the blackened remnants of Bosmeri villages, he asked no questions and spoke nothing of his life over the past weeks. He merely listened to Malin's theories of Merethic Aldmeri Esoterica. The translator was undemanding of his guest's scholarship, accepting nods and shrugs as civilized conversation. He even produced some wine and fish jelly, which he shared with Scotty absent-mindedly, as he expounded on his various theses. Finally, while Malin was searching for a reference to some minor point in his notes, Scotty asked, "Rather off subject, but I was wondering where we're bound." "The very heart of the province. Sylvanar." Oh, how convenient. Malin said, not looking up from the passage he was reading. "It's somewhat bothersome, actually, as I wanted to go to Woodhearth first to talk to a Bosmer there who claims to have an original copy of Durith Haumilhiad, if you can believe it, but for the time being, that has to wait. Somerset Isle has surrounded the city, and is in the process of starving the citizenry until they surrender. It's a tiresome prospect, since the Bosmeri are happy to eat one another, so there's a risk that at the end only one fat wood elf will remain to wave the flag." What the fuck? "That is vexing," agreed Scotty sympathetically. "To the east, the Khajiit are burning everything, and to the west, the High Elves are waging war. I don't suppose the borders to the north are clear." "They're even worse," replied Malin, finger on the page, still distracted. "The Cyrodiils and Redguards don't want Bosmer refugees streaming into their provinces. It only stands to reason. Imagine how much more criminally inclined they'd be now that they're homeless and hungry." God, what an American attitude. So, murmured Scotty, feeling a shiver, "we're trapped in Valenwood." "Not at all. I need to leave fairly shortly myself, as my publisher has set a very definite deadline for my new book of translations. From what I understand, one merely petitions to the Sylvanar for special border protection, and one can cross into Cyrodiil with impunity." Petition the Sylvanar, or petition at Sylvanar? Petition the Sylvanar at Sylvanar. It's an odd nomenclature that is typically of this place, the sort of thing that makes my job as a translator the much more challenging. The Sylvanar, he, or rather they, are the closest the Bosmeri have to a great leader. The essential thing to remember about the Sylvanar, Malin smiled, finding the passage he was looking for. "Here. A fortnight inexplicable. The world burns into a dance." There's that metaphor again. "What were you saying about the Sylvanar?" asked Scotty, the essential thing to remember. "I don't remember what I was saying," replied Malin, turning back to his oration. In a week's time, the little boat bumped along the shallow, calmer waters of the foaming current the Xylo had become, and Decimus Scotty first saw the city of Sylvanar. If Falestini was a tree, then Sylvanar was a flower. A magnificent pile of faded shades of grey, red, blue, and white, shining with crystalline residue. Malin had mentioned offhand, when not otherwise explaining Aldmeri prosody, that Sylvanar had once been a blossoming glade in the forest, but owing to some spell or natural cause, the tree's sap began flowing with translucent liquor. The process of the sap flowing and hardening over the colorful trees had formed the web of the city. Malin's description was intriguing, but it hardly prepared him for the city's beauty. "What is the finest, most luxurious tavern here?" Scotty asked one of the Bosmer boatmen. Prithalla Hall, Malin answered. "But why don't you stay with me? I'm visiting an acquaintance of mine, a scholar I think you'll find fascinating. His hovel isn't much, but he has the most extraordinary ideas about the principles of a Merithic Aldmiri tribe, the Samarthi. Under any circumstances, I would happily accept. Under any other circumstances, I would happily accept," said Scotty graciously, oh my lord. "But after weeks of sleeping on the ground or on a raft, and eating whatever I could scrounge, I feel the need for some indulgent creature comforts. And then, after a day or two, I'll petition the Sylvanar for safe passage to Cyrodiil." The men bade each other goodbye. Griff Malin gave him the address of his publisher in the Imperial City, which Scotty accepted and quickly forgot. The clerk wandered the streets of Sylvanar, crossing bridges of amber, admiring the petrified forest architecture. In front of a particularly estimable palace of silvery reflective crystal, he found Prithla Hall. That damn TH sound is really fucking me up on this word. He took the finest room and ordered a gluttonous meal of the finest quality. At a nearby table, he saw two very fat fellows, a man and a Bosmer, remarking how much finer the food was there than at the Sylvanar's palace. They began to discuss the war and some issues of finances, in rebuilding provincial bridges. The man noted Scotty looking at them, and his eyes flashed recognition. "Scotty, is that you? Kinnereth, where have you been? I've had to make all the contracts here on my own." At the sound of his voice, Scotty recognized him. The fat man was Lloydus Juris, vastly engorged. Goddamn, he finally found him after all this freaking time. This man has gone through freaking hell. He's gone through war after war and fight after fight. He's killed and ate some random thingy. I don't know. He's had a time. Alright, here we are. Dance and Fire, Chapter 6. Decimus Scotty sat down, listening to Lloydus Juris. The clerk could hardly believe how fat his former colleague at Lord Atreus's building commission had become. I'm just realizing that last book was the first time he didn't mention, I think, that he didn't mention freaking Lord Atreus's building commission. The piquant aroma of the roasting meat dish before Scotty melted away. All the other sounds and textures of Prithla Hall vanished all around him, as if nothing else existed but the vast form of Juris. Scotty did not consider himself an emotional man, but he felt a tide flow over him at the sight and sound of the man whose badly written letters had been the guideposts that carried him from the Imperial City back in early Frostfall. Oh god, yeah, it's probably been a long-ass time for him, huh? "Where have you been?" Juris demanded again. "I told you to meet me in Palestine weeks ago." "I was there weeks ago," Scotty stammered, too surprised to be indignant. "I got your note to meet you in Athay, and so I went there, but the Khajiit had burned it to the ground. Somehow I found my way with the refugees in another village, and someone there told me that you had been killed. And you believed that right away?" Juris sneered. The fellow seemed very well informed about you. He was a clerk from Lord Vinek's building commission named Reglius, and he said that you had also suggested that he come down to Valenwood for profit from the war. "Oh yes," said Juris after thinking a moment. "I recall the name now. Well, it's good business to have two representatives from Imperial building commissions here. We just need to all coordinate our bids, and all should be well." "Reglius is dead," said Scotty, "but I have his contracts from Lord Vinek's commission." "Even better," gasped Juris, impressed. I never knew you were such a ruthless competitor, Decimus Scotty. Holy fuck, my guy." "Yes, this could certainly improve our position with the Sylvanar. Have I introduced you to Bast? Here? You gonna say something about like, oh, I didn't actually kill him, my guy. Scotty had only been dimly... Wait, did he actually? He might have killed... No, he didn't kill him. No, he killed a sheep, but he didn't kill him. Scotty had only been dimly aware of the Bosmer's presence at the table with Juris, which was surprising given that the Mer's girth nearly equaled his dining companion. The clerk nodded to Bass I'm just gonna call him Bass. The clerk nodded to Bass coldly, still numb and confused. It had not left his mind that only an hour earlier Scotty had intended to petition the Sylvanar for safe passage through the border back to Cyrodiil. The thought of doing business with Juris after all, of profiting from Valenwood war with elsewhere, and now the second one with the Somerset Isle, seemed like something happening to another person. I mean, the place is under war again, so like, why would you really want to do that at this point, you know? Your colleague and I were talking about the Sylvanar, said Bass, putting down the leg of mutton he had been gnawing on. I don't suppose you've heard about his nature. A little, but nothing very specific. I got the impression that he's very important and very peculiar. He's the representative of the people, legally, physically, and emotionally, explained Juris, a little annoyed at his new partner's lack of common knowledge. When they're healthy, so is he. When they're mostly females, so is he. When they cry for food or trade or an absence of foreign interference, he feels it too, and makes laws accordingly. In a way, he's a despot, but he's the people's despot. That sounds, said Scotty, searching for the appropriate word, like bunk. Perhaps it is, shrugged Bass, but he has many rights as the voice of the people, including the granting of foreign building and trade contracts. It's not important whether you believe us. Just think of the Sylvanar as being like one of your mad emperors, like Pelagius. The problem facing us now is that since Valenwood is being attacked on all sides, the Sylvanar's aspects is now one of distrust and fear of foreigners. The one hope of his people, thus of the Sylvanar himself, is that the Emperor will intervene and stop the war. Will he? Asked Scotty. You know as well as we do that the Emperor has not been himself lately. Juris helped himself to Regulus's satchel and pulled out the blank contracts. Who knows what he'll choose to do or not do? That reality is not our concern, but these blessings from the late good Sir Regulus make our job much simpler. I wonder what, because this book was like, what, 35 years ago, I think we were saying? Yeah, I think it still would have been Emperor Uriel VII at that point. They discussed how they would represent themselves to the Sylvanar in the evening. Scotty ate continuously, but not nearly as much as Juris and Bass. When the sun had begun to rise in the hills, its light reddening through the crystal walls of the tavern, Juris and Bass left their rooms at the palace, granted to them diplomatically in lieu of an actual immediate audience with the Sylvanar. Scotty went to his room. He thought about staying up a little longer to ruminate over Juris's plans and see what might be the flaw in them, but upon touching the cool, soft bed, he immediately fell asleep. The next afternoon, Scotty awoke, feeling himself again. In other words, timid. For several weeks now, he had been a creature bent on mere survival. He had been driven to exhaustion, attacked by several jungle beasts, starved, nearly drowned, and forced into discussions of ancient Aldmeri poetical works. God, that was the worst of it all. The discussion he had with Juris and Bass about how to dupe the Sylvanar into signing their contract seemed perfectly reasonable then. Scotty dressed himself in his old battered clothes and went downstairs in search of food and a peaceful place to think. "You're up," cried Bass upon seeing him. "We should go to the palace now." "Now?" whined Scotty. Look at me. I need new clothes. This isn't the way one should dress to pay a call on a prostitute." Wait, what? This isn't the way one should dress to play... to pay a call on a prostitute, let alone the voice of the people of Valenwood. I haven't even bathed. You must cease from this moment forward being a clerk, and become a student of mercantile trade, said Lloydus Juris grandly, taking Scotty by the arm and leading him into the sunlight boulevard outside. The first rule is to recognize what you... are these books all meant as, like, improving your speechcraft or whatever? Because if that's the case, that's... No, they probably... This one is probably, your, like, mercantile trade, but some of the other ones were probably, like, archery or just stupid shit. Okay, yeah, because that last book was giving, like, the specifics on how far you should, like, keep your feet apart. It's like, okay, yeah, sure. The first rule is to recognize what you represent to the prospective client, and what angle best suits you. You cannot dazzle him with opulent fashion and professional bearing, my dear boy, and it would be fatal if you attempted to. Trust me on this. Several others besides Bass and I are guests at the palace, and they have made the error of appearing too eager, too formal, too ready for business. They will never be granted audience with the Sylvanar, but we have remained aloof ever since the initial rejection. I've dallied about the court, spread my knowledge of life in the imperial city, had my ears pierced, attended promenades, eaten and drunk. Of all that was given to me, I dare say I've put on a pound or two. The message we've sent is clear. It is not his, not ours, but it is in his, not our, best interest to meet. Our plan worked, added Bass. When I told his minister that our imperial representative had arrived, and that we were at last willing to meet with the Sylvanar this morning, we were told to bring you there straight away. Aren't we late then? Asked Scotty. Very, laughed Juris. But that's again part of the angle we're representing. My god, this is some crazy diplomacy. Benevolent disinterest. What the fuck? Remember not to confuse the Sylvanar with conventional nobility. His is the mind of the common people. When you grasp that, you'll understand how to manipulate him. Juris spent the last several minutes of the walk through the city expounding on his theories about what Valenwood needed, how much, and at what price. They were staggering figures, far more construction and far higher costs than anything Scotty had been used to dealing with. He listened carefully. All around them, the city of Sylvanar revealed itself, glass and flower, roaring winds, and beautiful inertia. When they reached the palace of the Sylvanar, Decimus Scotty stopped, stunned. Juris looked at him for a moment and then laughed. It's quite bizarre, isn't it? That it was, a frozen scarlet burst of twisted, uneven spires as if a rival sun rising. A blossom the size of a village where courtiers? Oh my god, I should know that word. I should know it, whatever. And servants resembled nothing so much as insects walked about it, sucking its ichor. Entering over a bent petal-like bridge, the three walked through the palace of unbalanced walls, this separate sentence here. Where the partitions bent close together and touched, there was a shaded hall or a small chamber. Where they warped away from one another, there was a courtyard. There were no doors anywhere, no any way to get to the Sylvanar but by crossing through the entire spiral of the palace, through meetings and bedrooms and dining halls, past dignitaries, consorts, musicians, and many guards. It's an interesting palace, said Bass, but not very much privacy. Of course, that suits the Sylvanar well. When they reached the inner corridors, 2 hours after they first entered the palace, guards brandished blades and bows stopped them. We have an audience with the Sylvanar, said Juris patiently. This is Lord Decimus Scotty, the imperial representative. One of the guards disappeared down the winding corridor, and returned moments later with a tall, proud Bosmer clad in a loose robe of patchwork leather. He was the Minister of Trade. The Sylvanar wishes to speak with Lord Decimus Scotty alone. It was not the place to argue or show fear, so Scotty stepped forward, not even looking toward Juris and Bass. He was certain they were showing their masks of benevolent indifference. Following the minister into the audience chamber, Scotty recited to himself all the facts and figures Juris had presented to him. He willed himself to remember the angle and the image he must project. The audience chamber of the Sylvanar was an enormous dome with the walls bent from bowl-shaped at the base inward to almost meet at the top. A thin ray of sunlight streamed through the fissure, hundreds of feet above, and directly upon the Sylvanar, who stood upon a puff of shimmering gray powder. For all the wonder of the city and the palace, the Sylvanar himself looked perfectly ordinary. An average, blandly handsome, slightly tired-looking, extraordinary wood elf of any of the type one might see in any capital in the Empire. It was only when he stepped from the dais, that Scotty noticed an eccentricity in his appearance. He was very short, as are most wood elves. I had to speak with you alone, said the Sylvanar in a voice common and unrefined. May I see your papers? Scotty handed him the blank contracts from Lord Vinek's building commission. The Sylvanar studied them, running his fingers over the embossed seal of the Emperor before handing them back. He suddenly seemed shy, looking to the floor. There are many charlatans at my court who wish to benefit from the wars. I thought you and your colleagues were among them, but those contracts are genuine. Yes, they are, said Scotty calmly. The Sylvanar's conventional aspect made it easy for Scotty to speak, with no formal greetings, no deference, exactly as Juris had instructed. It seems most sensible to begin straight away talking about the roads which need to be rebuilt, and then the harbors that the Almeri have destroyed. And then I can give you my estimates on the coast and resupplying and renovating the trade routes. Why hasn't the Emperor seen fit to send a representative when the war with Elsewhere began 2 years ago? Asked the Sylvanar glumly. Scotty thought a moment before replying. Of all the common Bosmeri he had met in Valenwood, the greedy, frightened mercenaries who had escorted him from the border, the hard-drinking revelers and expert pest-exterminating archers in the western cross of Philistini, nosy old Mother Pascost and Havel Slump, Captain Balfix, the poor, sadly reformed pirate, the terrified but hopeful refugees of Athay and Grenos, the mad, murderous, self-devouring wild hunt of Vindicai, the silent, dour boatman hired by Griff Malin, the degenerate, grasping bass. If one creature representing their total disposition, and that of many more throughout the province, what would be his personality? Scotty was a clerk by occupation and nature, instinctively comfortable cataloging and filing, making things fit in a system. If the soul of Valenwood were to be filed, where would it be put? The answer came upon him almost before he posed himself the question. Denial. I'm afraid that question doesn't interest me, said Scotty. Now, can we get back to the business at hand? What a dick answer, but goddamn, okay. All afternoon, Scotty and the Sylvanar discussed the pressing needs of Valenwood. Every contract was filled and signed, so much was required, and there were so many costs associated with addendums, and codicils had to be scribbled into the margins of the papers, and those had to be re-signed. Scotty maintained his benevolent indifference, but he found that dealing with the Sylvanar was not quite the same as dealing with a simple, sullen child. The voice of the people knew certain practical, everyday things very well. The yields of fish, the benefits of trade, the condition of every township and forest in his province. We will have a banquet tomorrow night to celebrate this commission, said the Sylvanar at last. Best make it tonight, replied Scotty. We should leave for Cyrodiil with the contracts tomorrow, so I'll need a safe passage to the border. We best not waste any more time. Agreed, said the Sylvanar, and called for his Minister of Trade to put his seal on the contracts and arrange for the feast. Scotty left the chamber and was greeted by Bass and Juris. Their faces showed the strain of maintaining the illusion of unconcern for too many hours. And as soon as they were out of sight of the guards, they begged Scotty to tell them all. When he showed them the contract, Bass began weeping with delight. Anything about the Sylvanar that surprised you? Asked Juris. I hadn't expected him to be half my height. Was he? Juris looked mildly surprised. He must have shrunk since I tried to have an audience with him earlier. Huh. Curious. Maybe there was something to all that nonsense about him being affected by the plight of his people. Or maybe spoke with different people in general. Very, very curious. Curious indeed. And now here we are, the final book. A Dance in Fire, Chapter 7. Scene, Sylvanar, Valenwood. Date, the 13th of Sun's Dusk, 3rd Era, 397. What year was the first one? Actually, I don't have the first book on me, so never mind. The banquet at the palace of the Sylvanar was well attended by every jealous bureaucrat and traitor who had attempted to contract the rebuilding of Valenwood. They looked on Decamus Scotty, Loidus Juris, and Bass with undisguised hatred. It made Scotty very uncomfortable, but Juris delighted in it. As the servants brought in platter after platter of roasted meats, Juris poured himself a cup of jaga and toasted the clerk. I can confess it now, said Juris. I had grave doubts about inviting you to join me on this adventure. All the other clerks and agents of building commissions I contacted were more outwardly aggressive, but none of them made it through. let alone to the audience chamber of the Sylvanar, let alone broker the deals on their own like you did. Come have a cup of Jaga with me." "No thank you," said Scotty. "I had too much of that drug in Philistini, and nearly got sucked dry by a giant tick because of it. I'll find something else to drink." Scotty wandered about the hall until he saw some diplomats drinking mugs of a steaming brown liquid, poured from a large silver urn. He asked them if it was tea. "Tea made from leaves?" scoffed the first diplomat. "Not in Valenwood. This is rot meth." Rot meth? What the fuck? Scotty poured himself a mug and took a tentative sip. It was gammy, bitter, and sugared, and very salty. At first it seemed very disagreeable to his palate, but a moment later he found he had drained the mug and was pouring another. His body tingled. All the sounds in the chamber seemed oddly disjointed, but not frighteningly so. "So you're the fellow who got the Sylvanar to sign all those contracts," said the second diplomat. "That must have required some deep negotiation." Not at all. Just a little basic understanding of mercantile trading," grinned Scotty, pouring himself a third mug of rot meth. "The Sylvanar was very eager to involve the Imperial States with the affairs of Valenwood. I was very eager to take a percentage of the commission. With all that blessed eagerness, it was merely a matter of putting quill to contract. Bless you." "You have been in the employ of His Imperial Majesty very long?" asked the first diplomat. It's a bit more complicated than that in the Imperial City. Between you and me, I don't really have a job. I used to work for Lord Atreus in his building commission, but I got sacked. And then the contracts are from Lord Vanek and his building commission, because I got him from this fellow Reglius, who is a competitor, but still a very fine fellow until he was made dead by those Khajiit. Scotty drained his fifth mug. Oh my god. Is this like some sort of liqueur, this drink? Because he gonna get absolutely sloshed. "When I go back to the Imperial City, then the real negotiations can begin. Bless you." Well, stop saying bless you, dude. I can go to my old employer and to Lord Vanek and say, "Look here, which of you wants these commissions?" And they'll fall over each other to take them from me. It will be bidding war for my percentage, the likes of which no one nowhere has never seen. "So you're not a representative of His Imperial Majesty the Emperor?" asked the first diplomat. "Didn't you hear what I'm said? Why are you talking so stupid, my guy? You stupid?" Scotty felt because he's kind of drunky. He's a little drunky now. Scotty felt a surge of rage, which quickly subsided. He chuckled and poured himself a seventh mug. We're skipping a lot of numbers here. "The building commissions are privately owned, but they're still representatives of the Emperor. So I'm a representative of the Emperor, or I will be. When I get these contracts in, it's very complicated. I can understand why you're not following me. Bless you. It's all like the poet said, a dance in fire if you follow the illusion, that is to say, illusion." "And your colleagues, are they representatives of the Emperor?" asked the second diplomat. Scotty burst into laughter, shaking his head. The diplomats bade him their respects and went to talk to the minister. Scotty stumbled out of the palace and reeled through the strange, organic avenues to the boulevards of the city. It took him several hours to find his way to Prithala Hall and his room. Once there, he slept very nearly on his bed. Okay. The next morning, he woke to Juris and Bass in his room, shaking him. He felt half asleep and unable to open his eyes fully, but otherwise fine. The conversation with the diplomats floated in his mind in a haze, like an obscure childhood memory. "What in Mara's name is rot meth?" he asked quickly. "Rancid, strongly fermented meat juices with lots of spices to kill the poisons," smiled Bass. "I should have warned you to stay with Jaga." "You must understand the meat's mandate by now," laughed Juris. "These Bosmeri would rather eat each other than touch the fruits of the vine or the field." What an interesting place that I really want to play an Elder Scrolls game in. "What did I say to those diplomats?" cried Scotty, panicking. "Nothing bad, apparently," said Juris, pulling out some papers. "Your escorts are downstairs to bring you to the Imperial Province. Here are your papers of safe passage. The Sylvanar seems very impatient about business proceeding forward rapidly. He promises to send you some sort of rare treasure when the contracts are fulfilled. See, he's already given me something." Juris showed off his new, bejeweled earring, a beautiful large faceted ruby. Bass showed that he had a similar one. The two fat fellows left the room so Scotty could dress and pack. A full regiment of the Sylvanar's guards was on the street in front of the tavern. They surrounded a carriage crested with the official arms of Valenwood. Still dazed, Scotty climbed in, and the captain of the guard gave the signal. He's so getting tricked into something. I just don't know what yet. They began a quick gallop. Scotty shook himself and then peered it behind. Bass and Juris were waving him goodbye. "Wait," Scotty cried. "Aren't you coming back to the Imperial Province too?" "The Sylvanar asked that we stay behind as Imperial representatives," yelled Loidus Juris. "In case there's a need for more contracts and negotiations." Okay, yeah, no, he's definitely just lulling several people to this place. He's appointed us Undrape, some sort of special honor for foreigners at court. Don't worry, lots of banquets to attend. You can handle the negotiations with Vinek and Atreus yourself, and we'll keep things settled here. Juris continued to yell advice about business, but his voice became indistinct with distance. Soon it disappeared altogether as the convoy rounded the streets of Sylvanar. The jungle loomed suddenly, and then they were in it. Scotty had only gone through it by foot or along the rivers by slow-moving boats. Now it flashed all around him in profusions of greens. The horses seemed even faster moving through underbrush than on the smooth paths of the city. None of the weird sounds or dank smells of the jungle penetrated the escort. It felt to Scotty as if he were watching a play about the jungle with a background of a quickly moving scrim, which offered only the merest suggestion of the place. So it went for 2 weeks. There was lots of food and water in the carriage with the clerk, so he merely ate and slept as the caravan pressed endlessly on. From time to time, he'd hear the sound of blades clashing, but when he looked around, whatever he had attacked the caravan had long since been left behind. At last, they reached the border, where an imperial garrison was stationed. Scotty presented the soldiers who met the carriage with the papers. They asked him a barrage of questions that he answered monosyllabically, and then let him pass. It took several more days to arrive at the gates of the Imperial City. The horses that had flown so fast through the jungle now slowed down in the unfamiliar territory of the wooded Colovian estates. By contrast, the cries of his province's birds and smells of his province's plant life brought Decimus Scotty alive. It was as if he had been dreaming all the past months. At the gates of the city, Scotty's carriage door was opened for him, and he stepped out on uncertain legs. Before he had a moment to say something to the escort, they had vanished, galloping back south through the forest. The first thing he did now that he was home was go to the closest tavern and have tea and fruit and bread. If he never ate meat again, he told himself, that would suit him very nicely. Negotiations with Lord Atreus and Lord Vinek proceeded immediately thereafter. Okay, so apparently, yeah, I guess he wasn't really... I don't know, there's still some more to the story. Proceeded immediately after. It was most agreeable. Both commissions recognized how lucrative the rebuilding of Valenwood would be for their agency. Lord Vinek claimed quite unjustifiably that as the contracts had been written on forms notarized by his commission, he had the legal right to them. Most certainly. Lord Atreus claimed that Decimus Scotty was his agent and representative, and that he had never been released from employment. The Emperor was called to arbitrate, but he claimed to be unavailable. His advisor, the Imperial battle mage Yeagar Tharn, from the first Elder Scrolls game, yeah, so wow, the first 4 Elder Scrolls games all take place within like 35 years of each other. That's kind of crazy. Had disappeared long ago and could not be called on for his wisdom and impartial mediation. Scotty lived very comfortably off the bribes from Lord Atreus and Lord Vinek. Every week, a letter would arrive from Juris and Bass asking about the status of negotiations. Gradually, these letters ceased coming, and more urgent ones came from the Minister of Trade and the Sylvanar himself. The War of the Blue Divide with Somerset Isle ended with the Almeri winning several new coastal islands from the Wood Elves. The war with Elsewhere continued, ravaging the eastern borders of Valenwood. Still, Vinek and Atreus fought over who would help. One fine morning in the early spring of the year 3rd Era 398, a courier arrived at Decimus Scotty's door. Lord Vinek has won the Valenwood Commission, and requests that you and the contracts come to his hall at your earliest convenience. Has Lord Atreus decided not to challenge further? Asked Scotty. He's been unable to, having died very suddenly, just now, from a terribly unfortunate accident. Sure, said the courier. Scotty had wondered how long it would be before the Dark Brotherhood was brought in for final negotiations. Oh, okay. And as he walked toward Lord Vinek's building commission, a long, severe piece of architecture on a minor but respectable plaza, he wondered if he had played the game as he ought to have. Could Vinek be so... He's so okay with the Dark Brotherhood just fucking killing off that guy. This guy's actually kind of terrible. Could Vinek be so rapacious as to offer him a lower percentage of the commission now that his chief competitor was dead? Thankfully, he discovered Lord Vinek had already decided to pay Scotty what he had promised during the heat of the winter negotiations. His advisors had explained to him that other, lesser building commissions might come forward unless the matter were handled quickly and fairly. Glad we have all the legal issues done with, said Lord Vinek fondly. Now we can get to the business of helping the poor Bosmeri and collecting the profits. It's a pity you weren't our representative for all the troubles with Bender Mock in the Arnesian business, but there will be plenty more wars, I'm sure of that. Scotty and Lord Vinek sent word to the Sylvanar that at last they were prepared to honor the contracts. A few weeks later, they held a banquet in honor of the profitable enterprise. Decimus Scotty was the darling of the imperial city, and no expense was spared to make it an unforgettable evening. As Scotty met the nobles and wealthy merchants who would be benefiting from his business dealings, an exotic but somehow faintly familiar smell rose in the ballroom. He traced it to its source, a thick roasted slab of meat, so long and thick it covered several platters. The Cyrodiilic revelers were eating it ravenously, unable to find the words to express their delight at its taste and texture. It's like nothing I've ever had before. It's like pig-fed venison. Do you see the marbling of fat and meat? It's a masterpiece. Scotty went to take a slice, but then he saw something embedded deep in the dried and rendered roast. He nearly collided with his new employer, Lord Vinek, as he stumbled back. Where did this come from? Scotty stammered. From our client, the Sylvanar, beamed his lordship. It's some kind of local delicacy they call anthrapa. Scotty vomited and didn't stop for some time. It cast rather a temporary pall on the evening, but when Decimus Scotty was carried off to his manor house, the guests continued to dine. The anthrapa was the delight of all, even more so when Lord Vinek himself took a slice and found the first of 2 rubies buried within. How very clever of the Bosmer to invent such a dish, the Cyrodiils agreed. 2 rubies. I feel like that's a reference to something, but I'm not entirely sure right now. Am I fucking dumb or something? Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what exactly it's trying to say with that. They had berries within. Maybe he just started to eat a ruby and was kind of fucking grossed out by it, and that's why he was vomiting, because, like, that's not exactly edible. I think there's the 2 rubies. Maybe that's, like, represents... I don't fucking know. But I did also actually find out when I looked it up that the story of Decimus Scotty continues in a different book series called, like, the Argonian account. So I probably have those, one would imagine, up in here. I could probably continue if we have... So long as we have them, we could probably continue with those, with that series. The Argonian account, book 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, yeah, I mean, we might as well continue with the series of Decimus, huh? Let's see. The Argonian account. How long is the story? 23? It's a little bit shorter. Okay, it's a bit of a shorter story. So that's good, I suppose. Yeah, I think these are really just meant to be like short stories of the dude kind of fucking around and going through all these different provinces. I don't think that's really meant to be taken all too much to heart, you know. But yeah, all right. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. I was really hoping for some like big twist at the end, but that just never really came. So I overall enjoyable series. But it really did end up. By the end of it, it felt like some like kid's story of just like this dude going around and doing all this, and then you get to the end and it's like, oh yeah, no, and he had a pretty decent happily ever after, but oh no, he vomited. Unless if I'm completely misunderstanding the ending of that story. I don't know. If I am, let me know in the comments. But yeah, aside from that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next episode where we're going to be robbing all of probably Skingrad? Yeah, we'll do Skingrad next. Why not? Why not? Yeah. Goodbye.
Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you. Cause I don't wanna see the glow without you. Refuse to even leave my home without you. Or my brain's gonna explode without you. I don't even know how to cope without you.